Well, I got pestered by this person called Judith Roddy,
Roddy.
kept phoning me. Why don't you get Frank McGuinness to write a play for us? That'll be fine. Sure, I say, Then I go back to real life, but she keeps phoning me. Oh God, she keeps phoning me. So I said, I better phone Frank. So I phoned Frank, and he's delighted to hear from me. And he says, well, actually, I've got something on my mind at the moment that I think could be very interesting for the two of you. And so I said, well, that's wonderful. So let us know when you've it. So he got it written. And actually, I read it and thought, and I think you did too, Judith. I just thought, this is really tremendous,
Yeah.
Like in a very relaxed kind of way. This is, you know what I mean? I didn't think, oh my God, I just thought, this is the real business, And I think you thought the same, did you not?
I did. It was, you sort of feel that white heat when you're reading something that's just been sent.
And what's the first project you worked on with Frank, Stephen?
Oh, I think I did. I can't exactly remember, but I did do a television thing that was about a football scout coming from Man United to try and pick up. I forget what it was called, but it was Ray McAnally was in it, another Inishowen man, and a bunch of other people. Lloyd Hutchison was in it. It was all about young guys, and I think I was a former player who was cracking up, which sort of felt like me, all right, And then I did this great play of his, which was called Someone Who'll Watch Over Me. And we started in Hampstead Theatre in London, and then went into the West End, and then we went to Broadway with it for 6 months. And it was a truly great experience. And a similar kind of thing to the Visiting Hour, because really it's it's just about a couple of people sitting in a room and fashioning a kind of relationship or discovering it, or and I think nobody can do this quite as brilliantly as Frank, because it's not, the door doesn't open, no one else comes in. I mean, in Visiting Hour, we merely have the occasional interfering sound of the tannoy telling them to hurry up and get on with their meeting, and yet it's so full of it's the most full relationship you could imagine on a stage, I think,
Yes.
and I don't know anybody who does it quite like that. What have you done with them before, Judith?
He did an adaptation of The Wild Duck. Tragic story. Nothing like a bit of an.
But he is the funniest guy. He's the funniest guy in the world, really. When I was in a version that we commissioned for Field Day of Uncle Vanya, and it was the most colloquial and hilarious thing. In fact, it should be done again. I don't. Yeah. But it's just hilarious.
Yeah.
And yet you're heading towards tragedy all the time. Wonderful. Very much the spirit of Chekhov,
And that's the thing, isn't it, with the Visiting Hour? There's a kind of an intimacy that allows the characters to be very dark and very comic side by side.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what I love most about it, is it's the language, it's so great that we have somebody that lets you just sound vaguely like yourself and be funny, and
yeah,
I mean, that seems to me like a big arrival in terms of Irish theatre. I mean, when you can do plays that can be seen all over the world, and yet nobody's and they're fully realised. You're not expecting the Irish to just be funny, you know. And you know, it's great. It's great. I mean, of course, Friel was the same, and there's lots of others the same. But Frank has a particular kind of absolute careless genius, you know.
When you got the script first, was there something in particular that spoke to you personally, would you say?
Well, it spoke very deeply to me personally, because I spent a lot of time visiting my mother, who was suffering from dementia and was in a care home. And it influenced a lot how I approached the character, and because I'd seen her loss, you know, and her confusion and the deep sadness to her of her loss, you know, and yet not quite understanding what was happening to her, you know, not at all understanding, in fact. And you know, it was terribly moving to have a chance to understand that, you know. And I'm assuming that Frank had a similar experience with a relation, but yeah, I'm not saying that it made it, but it made me know her again, you know. It made me feel that, you know, and it was good. And I could remember the last time I saw her and she looked at me, you know, she looked up at me, and I'm haunted by that look, you know. And I imagine it's something like what the daughter in this, every time she leaves, she'll think, maybe this is the end, maybe this is the last one, you know. It's shocking, really. Because it seems to me, I don't know that, I mean, as we all talked about when we were doing it, like when I was a young fella, my granny, we didn't say she had dementia, we said she was doting.
Yeah.
And she never went to a care home. People and neighbours would come in and see her, you know, and people would go round to her house and everything. But she wasn't condemned to. I mean, maybe families were closer together in those days. I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, maybe they were more willing to care for the. It's just something that everybody will experience. That's why, you know. That's why I think it's a great play to do.
I got a lovely email today from a writer called Lindsay Rodden, who watched it and was really struck by what you're saying, Stephen, about the reflections in the glass. And then later she was really struck by thinking about the visiting hour and how we've all become ghosts behind these glasses that are our devices. And I thought it was a really interesting observation.
The Area Man, they were brilliant, weren't they?
Yeah, the company that filmed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Well, everyone was incredible. I mean, it was an incredible team performance by everyone, you know, and the crew, the film crew were sensational, and everybody was. It's just, and it's been a totally happy experience in the sense that, look how fortunate we were that Frank didn't write a bummer, you know. And, you know, that he wrote something that, you know, just immediately said, yeah, well, we need to do this, you know.
Yeah.
And then he was very keen that we do it during the period of the pandemic rather than wait, you know. Although I think it will have equal power once the pandemic is gone, and if the pandemic is gone, and we're doing it in the Gate Theatre live, you know. You know.
Yeah. That in its own right does stand up outside of the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's the same with Someone Who'll Watch Over Me. You know, many people watching it had experienced being kidnapped in Beirut, you know, that was what it was about. And but they'd experienced all of the presumption about each other that the characters displayed, you know, and resentment, and in the end, a kind of love, you know. So that was, so that's his genius, you know. He makes you feel you're going through it.
We talked about it a little bit in rehearsal, didn't we? The parallel with the epic story of King Lear and the father-daughter relationship.
Well, you know, I do feel that, for instance, another play that I did recently, the last play I did before this, Cypress Avenue by David Ireland, I thought that was a Lear story, a man who kills his family, you know, kills his daughter because he can't understand life at all.
Yeah.
And it had the size of that, you know. I suppose that's the great thing about these guys, you know. They're so versed in the great drama of the world, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many great laughs, so many dark, great laughs at Cypress Avenue. Oh,
Yeah.
did I enjoy the dark laughing? It was brilliant.
Yeah.
That dark northern sense of humor that I think we all appreciated over the rehearsal period.
Sure did. Yeah.
We had plenty of laughs ourselves, didn't we?
We did. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was something, Stephen, how funny, how bold you are. Your jokes and your sense of humor was lovely.
Well, you see, I always used to dread rehearsals, and now I enjoy them because it's the only time I ever get to meet anybody. But no, well, I'm glad. Caitriona, I'm so glad you find me funny. But sure, that's the first instinct in acting is to make people laugh. You know, I believe that. You know, it's like when you're a kid, that's what interests you in acting is the response you get when people actually laugh. And so let's all do something again, as well as France.
Yep.
Let's do something very, very fun.
Thanks very much for the chat, guys.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you at a distance. Bye-bye.
Let's have a chat about The Visiting Hour. It's your Gate stage debut before you moved to the Abbey. I am absolutely delighted that you are directing it.
Oh, I'm over the moon.
Tell me a little about what attracted you to the play and how you're in a second week of rehearsals. How is it all going for you?
I think it's going really well. I mean, we've done a week, and this week we've had a bank holiday, so we're very early in the process. But I have to say, it's a very joyful room to be in. I was drawn to it initially. Well, I am a sucker for Frank McGuinness, I have to say. We're from the same part of the world, and when I read him, he makes me laugh out loud. Like, he captures local people in Donegal and in his show better than most people. It's just gorgeous to work on a text that feels so local to me and familiar. You know, I was interested immediately. But this is a beautiful, subtle, delicate piece of writing. It's a father and daughter, and it's set in a nursing home. The father's inside, the daughter is outside. And it came from an experience. Frank was inspired by an experience he had where he went to visit a friend. And this was before COVID. It was a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he was really taken by how somebody with dementia was being looked after in this nursing home, the care that was being taken. And then I think the images of seeing families not able to connect with their loved ones and seeing them outside windows and thinking about his experience and how these people would be confused and, you know, abandoned because of the necessities of the COVID regulations just inspired this beautiful, delicate little simple play. Not simple at all, actually. I'm sure the actors would take the head off me for saying that, because it's quite complicated. As you can imagine, playing somebody with dementia and non sequiturs and thoughts coming, from no connecting feed line is quite the challenge to learn, but they're doing really well with it, and having a lot of laughs in the process.
And what's it like with Stephen and Judith?
Well, they're great fun, and Stephen and Judith know each other from work in the past. So they have a lovely, lovely connection and energy. So, they bring a lot. They don't let each other away with very much. They bring a lot of fun out of each other. So it's been really great for me getting to sit back and watch the fireworks they're having. They have a lovely quality together. And, as well, they're so experienced, both of them. They've done so much, but to see them sitting down, engaging with the basics of the simplest form, two people sitting down, talking to each other. There's very little going on in terms of movement or, anything obvious that you would normally see in a theatre production. It's just purely them, their relationship, and these words that Frank has written. It's gorgeous. One of the gifts is that when you have a camera, the levels of intimacy and quiet and connection between minutiae in terms of what people are thinking and wanting to say and not saying, the insight you get into that, putting a camera in someone's face is gorgeous, and it's a real gift for like a theatre director. I haven't made films or anything before, so paring something down into that moment between two people has been a really interesting process for me in terms of my thinking around how to stage something. I constantly find that I'm having a thought, A could do this and B could do that, and then seeing it in the room and thinking, that's too big. A doesn't need to do anything. A only needs to think it, and it's there. So, and I think we will borrow some of that when we go back to live experiences, because we'll have that experience of what cameras can do,